It is difficult to think of child abuse and imagine anything more threatening to a child than being abused or molested by an adult or anyone who is supposed to be his or her primary source of care, protection, and love. But unfortunately, the cases of parents or guardians abusing children in any sense of the word is becoming more and more common nowadays. Child abuse is one of the major problems in our society. There are many forms of child maltreatment, like emotional, physical, neglect, and sexual abuse. Children's sexual development is often ignored in developmental discourse, causing a lot of the victims social skill issues, low self esteem, or even behavioral problems when they face a more traumatic experience like penetration or intrafamilial abuse. According to Martinello Emily, abuse in childhood can have a love-like effects of a child's emotional, physical, mental, or spiritual development. These effects may be lifelong and can affect both quality of life and health. And it might even get worse if the children are not being supported or believed. Today, I will talk to you about raising the awareness about different types of child abuse. Child sexual abuse is a widespread phenomenon that might occur in every culture and community, but unfortunately, only 10% of the cases are reported, which leaves the other 90% undiscovered and might have serious long-term effects on the victims. According to the Children's Bureau, in the United States, CSA is defined as experiencing at least one contact, for example, intercourse or general contact, or even non-contact as sexual invitations or exhibition episode by either a family or non-family member before the age of 18. And in majority of cases, sexual abuse is linked to major traumas like connecting emotionally, physically, and this causes low self-esteem and depression. Another way sexual abuse can affect is by affecting their parental skills. According to Maria and Heather Triple, sexual abuse survivors have a challenging time trying to feel connected to their kids, especially if their abuser was one of their parents. In a lot of cases, when the patient go untreated for their own trauma, they can become the predator themselves. One of the worst child abuse cases in the U.S. history is the story of Brianna Lopez, a 5-month-old baby who passed away on July 19, 2002, due to severe child abuse. Baby Brianna was abused the instant she left the hospital after she was born until the day of her death. She was constantly raped, beaten, being kicked, and in majority of cases, she was being raped and being beaten by her own mother and father. Another form of child maltreatment is physical abuse. Physical abuse in children is one of the most common forms of maltreatment. Many of these cases are caused by the victim's parents or family members. According to the National Child Abuse and Neglect Data System, an estimated of 3.4 million reports of physical abuse and neglect involved in nearly 6.2 million children were delivered to a local child protective services agents throughout the United States of America. Physical abuse is usually defined as any intentional physical harm done to the child, and some of these injuries could be like burning, kicking, hitting the child with an object. There are many signs of child abuse, but many of them often go unnoticed. But physicians and school teachers can often notice the child's behavior change or physical marks that the victim might have left on the body. According to the United States Department of Health and Human Services, an estimated of 1,500 children suffer fatal wounds as a result of physical abuse and neglect. The long-lasting effects of child abuse can cause depression, anxiety, drug, alcohol abuse, eating disorders, problems at school, or even criminal behaviors. According to a study published in March, the researchers found through hundreds of Canadians' records and published records involving stories of prisoners between 1987 and 2017. According to the AJPH study, 87% of the prisoners were victims of child abuse before the age of 18. There are many more ways to abuse a child than sexual and physical abuse. This next maltreatment can cause it's a lot more common than we would like to think, and is often go unnoticed because it does not only leave a physical mark, and this type of abuse is called emotional. According to the US government, emotional abuse is a pattern of behavior that impairs a child's emotional development or self-worth. Many ways to abuse a child emotionally is by constant criticism, threats, and withholding love, or even sometimes rejection towards a kid. These types of abuse are difficult to identify because, as we mentioned before, it can only be reported if the victim is aware of the trauma they have. In 90% of the cases, they go unnoticed because the victim often feels like it's their fault that they're being abused. Emotional abuse in children can be very traumatic for young kids, especially if the abuse is coming from a parent or someone close to them. Many different effects could be behavioral problems like anger issues, anorexia, and depression. Another form of child abuse that we're going to talk about is negligence, and it's often defined as intentional or no intentional failure of providing the essential care to an infant or minor. So many ways to neglect or abuse a child is by the failure of providing health, care, nutrition, supervision, clothing, and housing. Negligence can also lead to a child's death. A study of child fatality done in Oklahoma found that fatalities due to a lack of supervision and a dangerous environment were much more common than those caused by deprivation of needs of medical and neglect. Negligence is often linked to behavioral problems when the victim becomes an adult, like substance abuse, domestic violence, or even unplanned pregnancy. There are many horrible cases of child negligence, but one of the most popular is Danielle Crockett's case. This little girl was found in an unsuitable environment, whom was locked by her abusive mother, and never saw the sunlight or ate solid food in the first 7 years of her life. In conclusion, after learning new statistics, effects, cases, and different cases of child abuse, we can all agree that our children need us to fight for their rights, for their well-being and safety. Things that we can do to help these children is like volunteering in local organizations, raise awareness funding, starting a new campaign at a local church, or even reporting any suspicious of child abuse cases. Children like Brianna Lopez and Danielle Crockett could have been saved by doing these things mentioned above. So let's just all unite and fight for these kids because they deserve to be happy and they deserve to be healthy, not to be abused or maltreated. Thank you so much for your time.